vibration of the Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki
Jai.
jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Praise the Holy Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Shri Gopal ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Shamakunda Radha Kunda Dear Gopal ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Radha Mundana ki jai. Shri Radha Pradhan ki jai. Shri Radha Chandra ki jai. Gangamayi ki jai. Gangamayi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani ki jai. What's beautiful is Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai. Shri Rajamana ki jai. Shri Shri Govinda ki jai. Samaveta Bhagavatam ki jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead ki jai. ISKCON New York Yatra ki jai. Brihadanaga Chesa, Opus Bishop ki jai. International Group for Life Chesa, Prasadam Distribution ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. I will open your Hare. All doors to some devotees. All doors to some devotees. All doors to some devotees. All doors of course to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Worship Gopal.
You have your own water, or should I get?
I need some water.
I'll get some plenty.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narotam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasa. Tato Jaya Budiraye.
Before reciting the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, which is where our amazing compass, let's offer a simple obeisance to our personality beloved, Lord God, unto Narayana Rishi, most human unto Mother Saraswati, Goddess of learning, unto Śrīmad Vyasa, the author, and unto Śrīmad Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
By regularly attending the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam class and rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is service of the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotion serves unto the personality of God in his worship and transcendental souls becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing reading from the fourth canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. This is chapter 8, and today's text should be 22. Tameva vatsa shayam pritya vatsalam. Mamukshya mrikya padhapya padhatim. Ananya bhave nijadharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham. Tameva vatsa shayam pritya vatsalam. Mamukshya mrikya padhapya padhatim. Ananya bhave nijadharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham. Tameva vatsa shaya bhritya vatsalam. Momokshya mritya padhapya padhatim. Ananya bhave nijadharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham. Please chant.
Tameva vatsa shraya bhritya vatsalam. Moksha bhritya padhapya padhatim.
Ananya bhave nijadharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham.
Tameva vatsa shraya bhritya vatsalam. Moksha Paddhati.
Ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham. Dharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham. Tameva vatsashaya bhritya vatsalam. Mumukshubhir mrigya padabja paddatim. Ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya bhajasya purusham. Tameva vatsashaya bhritya vatsalam. Mumukshubhir mrigya padabja. Ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya vajasya purusham. Tameva vatsashraya bhritya vatsalam. Mumukshubhir mrigya padabja paddatim. Ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite. Manasya vastapya vajasya purusham. Okay, synonyms. Come, him, eva, also, vatsa, my dear boy, ashraya, take shelter, bhritya vatsalam, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Mumukshubhihi, also by persons desiring liberation. Mrigya, to be sought. Pada abja, lotus feet. Padhatim, system. Ananya bhave, in an unflinching situation. Nija dharma bhavite, being situated in one's original constitutional position. Manasi, unto the mind. Avastapya, placing. Bhajasva, go on executing devotional service. Purusham, the Supreme Person. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. My dear boy, you also should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. Please repeat, my dear boy. You also should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The system of Bhakti Yoga, described by Queen Suniti to her son, is the standard way of God realization. Everyone can continue in his constitutional occupational duties and at the same time keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. This was also instructed by the Lord himself to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Quote, go on fighting, but keep me within your mind. End of quote. That should be the motto of every honest person seeking perfection in Krishna consciousness. In this connection, Queen Suniti advised her son that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Bhritya Vatsala, which indicates that he is very kind to his devotees. She said, quote, you came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother, but I am unable to do any good for you. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees that if you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. When everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotee. End of quote. Queen Suniti also stressed that the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not easy, but is sought after by great sages who are very advanced in spiritual realization. Queen Suniti also indicated by her instruction that Dhruva Maharaj was only a small child, 5 years old, and it was not possible for him to purify himself by the way of karma kanda. But by the process of bhakti yoga, even a child less than 5 years old or anyone of any age can be purified. That is the special significance of bhakti yoga. Therefore, she advised him not to accept worship of the demigods or any other process, but simply to take to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result would be all perfection. As soon as one places the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart, everything becomes easy and successful. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachat Deshatarine Om Agyana Tamirandasya Agyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishnang Shnapitang Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripe Pancha Kalpaturubhya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Suniti is instructing Dhruva. Is she a pure devotee? Is it stated anywhere that she's a pure devotee? The reason I'm asking that is because this process of bhakti yoga is so powerful that even if you're not a pure devotee, you can pass on the instructions and they will have effect. I've given my own case as an example, that I was going to Polytechnic Institute of New York, just 5 blocks from here, J Street, and I met one devotee, brahmachari, at a book table. He gave me Krishna Reservoir Pleasure, and it made so much sense to me, I started going to the Henry Street Temple. Now, I always assumed that this person had already been initiated, Devamrita. I thought he was Devamrita Das Brahmachari at the time. But he told me just 2 winters back, they invited me to be the guest of honor speaker at their Recharge Festival in New Zealand. That's his bailiwick, his stomping grounds, his preaching place. So I was discussing with him. We were reminiscing over those days. And he said, no, I wasn't even initiated yet. I was still a bhakta. So that's the power of devotional service, of bhakti yoga. Even an uninitiated person, a new person, even somebody who has no intention of being initiated can pass on the message and it will have effect. The example I give of that last statement is one devotee in San Diego that I met. Many years I was in San Diego community for a few years in the 90s. So when he graduated from high school, he asked his parents, because they were pretty well-to-do family, his parents asked him, what do you want? We can give you a trip to Europe. What do you want to do? He said, I would like to go to the Hare Krishna restaurant in London. Now, why did he develop that desire? His mother had bought a Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. She never read it. She took it home, put it on the bookshelf. But while he was growing up, he was reading it. So he developed some Krishna conscious sentiment, and he went and he heard that one of the best Hare Krishna restaurants in the world is the London Soho Street restaurant. So he wanted to go there. So they promised, so they gave him a trip. He went, and later on he came back, became a full-blown devotee, and got initiated. So that's the power of Prabhupada's movement. Anyone, even unknowingly, can pass on the message of Bhakti Yoga, and it will have effect. This is called Agyata Sukriti. And the mother definitely got benefit from buying that book, even though she herself never read it. But because her son read it and became a devotee, she's benefited. So Suniti, we're talking about personalities in a different mode of existence than we are currently in Kali Yuga. So she was aware of the process of Bhakti Yoga, not necessarily at this point a topmost practitioner herself. That's not stated anywhere, but it didn't matter. Her son, by her urging and by the insult of his stepmother, Suruchi, he became a pure devotee. So she benefited. It's stated in different places, 7 generations forward, backward. Sometimes it says 14 generations forward, backward. In any case, everybody in your family will get benefit if you become a pure devotee. That's why in the early days, we made the mistake of driving the family away because they were meat eaters and we call them all kinds of bad names. But that's not required. It's not that because you become a devotee, now everybody should immediately. No, just be their well-wisher. You can even go and visit them. Prabhupada sanctioned. He said, because devotees asked, Prabhupada, this Christmas, can I go and see my family? Prabhupada said, yes, but don't eat anything that they cook. He said, you can accept milk and fruits. That's it. Don't eat anything that they cook. Suniti will definitely benefit from giving proper advice to Dhruva. Now, in this purport, it's mentioned Krishna's Britya Vatsala. So this word Britya means servant. And it occurs, you'll find in Mukundamala Stotra, text 25. In Kulashekar is praying to Krishna. It says, Madjan Manang Madharanam Madhakaitavare Madpartaniya Yaranugar Eva Esha Brityasya Britya Paricharya Kabritya Britya Brityasya Britya Itimang Smaralokanata. So he said, oh my dear enemy of Madhu and Kaitav, my dear Lord of the universe, the highest benediction you can give me is if you think of me as the servant of the servant, of the servant of the servant, of the servant of the servant, of your servant. 7 times mentioned in that verse. So this is our aspiration. We're not aspiring to become servants of Krishna. We're aspiring to become servants many times removed. In our case, in that purport, actually Prabhupada started translating and purporting Mukundamala Stotra. He got up to, I think, text 12 or 13. The rest of the book is done by Satsvarup Maharaj. So in that text 25, you're hearing from Satsvarup Maharaj. But he gave a very nice purport there. That in our case, we're 11 generations removed. So we have to aspire to be at least the 11th generation of servant, not direct servant. We have to desire to be servants of Srila Prabhupada, who is servant of Bhaktisiddhanta, who is servant of Gaura Kishore, like that, going back all the way up to Krishna. So this is excellent advice that she's giving, because we know Dhruva, being a Kshatriya, not necessarily just by birth, by his qualification. We know it's not necessarily by birth. Krishna says, Chaturvarna Maya Krishna, Guna Karma Vibhagasha. It's not by birth. But generally speaking, especially in the higher sections of society, in those days when things were pretty much in order, the son pretty much always became whatever the father was. Not 100%. We know King Rishabdev had 100 sons. Did they all become Kshatriyas? No. Who were the famous non-Kshatriyas from that lineage? Yeah, Navayogenjas. So they didn't become Kshatriyas. So it's not necessarily because the father is a Kshatriya that the son has to be a Kshatriya. The son, according to Guna and Karma. Yeah, Guna and Karma. So, but Dhruva, even at this age, 5 years, he already had that Kshatriya spirit. And that's why he felt so insulted by Suruchi, and he wanted revenge, and he was willing to do anything to get it. 5-year-old, so courageous. Many of us, 30, 40, 50, 70, we are afraid to go out this front door. Because it's Kali Yuga, you never know who you'll run into. So many weird people are walking up and down Skimmerhorn Street. Not as bad as it used to be. There was one time where you really wouldn't want to come in this neighborhood. Now it's gentrified and so many people are, well-to-do people are living in this neighborhood. But the point is, at 5 years old, to be willing to go to the forest, and the forest in those days meant real forest. Even 200 years ago, forest in India was real forest. Before the British, I like to say, before the British came to India, there was practically a tiger every square meter in India. Everywhere you went, there were wild animals, tigers, elephants, rhinoceros. But still, because of the Vedic conception of life, people were able to live more or less harmoniously with these wild creatures. But then the British came with their guns and decimated, just for pleasure, not because they needed to eat them or anything, nothing like that, just for pleasure. Feeling good, feeling big because I killed a big animal like an elephant But they don't understand that in the Vedic culture, yes, this killing was allowed by the Kshatriyas, first of all, to practice killing, and then later on, if there was a problem animal, like we know when tigers get old, they can't chase down the deer anymore. Human beings are an easy target. So some, wild animals, tigers, lions, they become man-eaters. So then you call in the local Kshatriya to go and take care of them. And up until maybe even just 50, 60 years ago, especially in South India, that was a practice. The Kshatriya would go armed with sword and shield, not with a big gun, and fight the tiger and kill the tiger, and then they would put the tiger in a palanquin and bring it back in a royal procession because he died courageously like that. So this business of killing animals was allowed under certain circumstances, not just wantonly, like is happening today. And it's this animal killing that has brought such a mass of bad karma, collective bad karma around the world. And that's why we see Prabhupada predicted, because of this meat eating especially. I mean, all of those principles are bad, but meat eating means that all of that karma is piled up and it has to go somewhere. And that's why there's so many wars all around the world nowadays. Like this war in Ukraine. I used to go to Ukraine every year for their festival, starting in 2015. One cannot tell a Ukrainian from a Russian just by looking at them. They look exactly the same. But they're killing each other. Why? They will come up with all kinds of political and economic reasons, but it's impelled by karmic reaction. You develop a hatred for your neighbor, for your brother even, for your father even, just impelled by karmic reaction. And therefore, the only hope is this Krishna consciousness movement. The only hope. No other, Prabhupada would say, they're creating so many conferences and United Nations, they're just becoming more and more disunited. More and more flags every day. So the only hope is this Krishna consciousness movement, because it gives you the basic understanding of who you are, like Sunichi's telling Dhruva here, that you have to act on your constitutional position, not just in Varna and Ashram, but the higher constitutional position, which as a servant of Krishna. So if everybody's taught that from early age, like Dhruva, Komara Machet Pragyo Dharmam Bhāgavatam, Durlabha Manasamjan, Tadapya Dhruvam Artadam, that this Bhagavad philosophy has to be taught from the beginning of life. It's even mentioned, Prabhupada said in his purport, that even younger than 5, even going back to the womb, like Narad Muni, if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where you can hear Bhagavad Gita every day in the womb of your mother, hear this chanting of Hare Krishna every day in the womb of your mother, of course you're going to come out inclined to Krishna consciousness. And we see that in our movement. Now, that inclination has to be fostered, it has to be encouraged, it has to be nurtured. Otherwise, again, because we always have free will. We always have free will. Once Prabhupada was asked by one devotee, Prabhupada, you say that, or Krishna says that once returning to the spiritual world, you don't come back. So does that mean that you don't have any? No, Prabhupada said you always have your free will. You can always come back again. But he gave the example of like putting your hand in fire. Once you put your hand in fire, you're not going to do it again. You can do it. The fire is there, your hand is there, you can put them together again. But you're not going to do it because you've experienced the bad reaction, and therefore you're not foolish enough to do it again. But free will is always there. So we shouldn't be surprised when highly elevated devotees sometimes fall down, because free will is there. Free will is there. And especially if you misuse that free will in relationship to devotees, you offend devotees. We've seen it over and over again. It doesn't mean they hadn't made advancement. Sometimes people act like that. It was such a big this and that, but no. No, it doesn't mean he didn't make it. He made advancement or she made advancement. The advancement is real. But until you come again to the point of 100%, as Prabhupada would say, 100% surrender to Krishna, there is always that little room that mistakes will drag you down. And we see currently in ISKCON, still this practice is going on where some devotees, they promote one person as being the person. But Prabhupada didn't want any Acharya syndrome. His Guru Maharaj didn't want any Acharya syndrome where one person is elevated as being so high, everybody should just listen to him and follow him. And no, they wanted a GBC system, which is what we have. And the GBC is the ultimate spiritual authority. No matter how much you think this Swami is advanced, he still has to work within the bounds of the society. And it's going on again. We see it. People are promoting this person as being, everybody should just bow down to him and follow him. But it happened. It's happened repeatedly in the past. We've seen it. So many devotees were promoted as being, and you had the disciple wars because they think, why would you take an initiation from this person? My guru is don't you see how exalted he is? And that's not our system. Initiation is an affair of the heart. So even if your guru is the highest, if somebody's more inspired by somebody else, that's okay. They don't have to be inspired by your guru. So don't get into this guru war business, promoting this person as being better than somebody else and everybody should take shelter of him. And that's not our system. That's not our system. Anybody who's properly initiated by a spiritual master, who's connected in the disciplic succession, and is following strictly, according to Vaishnava culture, because you cannot see, there are 5 indicators of seniority. The first one is by initiation. So if you have a son, and your son is initiated before you, then now he's senior to you. Prabhupada himself said that in one case. One man had been coming around, and the son was coming, and the son became initiated before. So Prabhupada said, now your son is your father. So that's the first indication of seniority, by initiation. Then the second one is by age. So if you're initiated at the same time, but this person is older than you, then you defer to that person. Then by varna, then by ashram, and then lastly by spiritual advancement, because you can't see that necessarily. There's so many examples of people who were mistreated because nobody realized they were spiritually advanced. I mean, it's just common sense. You can't necessarily see you don't wear your spiritual advancement on your sleeve. The highest indicator of your advancement is how you're attached to following your guru. Anybody who is not attached to following their guru, suspect. So if you start, and this was going on while Prabhupada was here. When Prabhupada was here, one of his first disciples wanted to start initiating, and Prabhupada said, no. The system is you wait till your spiritual master leaves, and then you take disciples. So you cannot necessarily see spiritual advancement. It's not so clear who is more advanced than another person spiritually. But what you can see is initiation, age, varna, and ashram. So those are given more stress. Now Dhruva, following Suruchi's prompting and his mother Suniti's clear indication or clear recommendation, he's going to go to the forest with wrong intention. With wrong intention. So that shows you can start, or most people start, the Bhakti Yoga process with wrong intentions. Not necessarily. Artha, jigyasu artha, jnanicha bharatarshma. So one can be curious, one can be in distress. It's not necessarily with the highest intentions, but the process is so pure that if you follow strictly the recommendations of the spiritual master, purification will take place, guaranteed. Because it's a process of purification. The perfection that we're looking for is already within. It's not something that you have to purchase in the marketplace. It's already there. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabanai. Shravanade Shuddha Chitte Karya Udai. This
love for Krishna that we want to experience, because it's the highest state of existence. The love in this material world is always suspect. It's stated that the highest form of love in the material world is that of mother for son. But we've seen so many times where the mother will misuse the son, abuse the son, even kill the son for her aggrandizement. So it's not this love that we try to experience in this material world. It's not real, proper to say. It's a false reflection of the real love that lust. The love that we have in the spiritual world for Krishna is transformed into lust in this material world. But the real love is there, and it's just a process of purification. So someone, practically everyone, comes with not so pure intentions in the beginning. If they stick to the process, they will become purified. And therefore, we're not so quick to criticize a person, especially in the beginning, because it's like criticizing somebody who's standing in the shower. They're still dirty, but they're taking a shower. So give them some time. They will come out clean. That mistake is also made. Sometimes the devotees who have been around for a while, they unnecessarily pound on the new people. Well, don't do this, do that. And therefore, in every temple community, it's better to have one person who is the leader of the new bhaktas. And anybody who has any issue should go to that person, and he or she should take care of it. Because if everybody jumps on them, it's very easy to become discouraged and bloop, as we used to say. Where does that word bloop come from? If you're on a boat and you drop something heavy into the water, it makes bloop, a blooping sound. So somebody who jumps off the ISKCON boat that's going back to Godhead, we say they bloop. Now, it's not always just the fault of the other devotees. That person has to take some responsibility, but it's generally accepted 50-50. If somebody leaves, we should think it's 50% their fault and 50% our fault. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, it takes gallons of blood to convert one person into a devotee of Krishna. So don't be so eager to throw them away. Don't be so eager. Give them some time. But we have to be intelligent. If somebody is doing something really bad that has a negative effect on the other devotees, then something has to be done about that. For example, if somebody has risen to the point of becoming treasurer, but they're caught stealing, you may give them another chance to remain in the community, but don't make them treasurer again. That's not intelligent. That's not intelligent. So we keep them in the community, we give them the opportunity to make advancement, but don't put them in a position where they can make the same mistake again, repeatedly. But we should be in a mood of forgiveness. There was one particular case in Hyderabad where something was going on not so good, and it was brought to Prabhupada's attention. And the devotees wanted to throw this offending devotee out. And Prabhupada said no. But Prabhupada, how many chances should we give this person? Prabhupada said, there's no limit. But again, we have to be intelligent. If somebody's doing something that is negatively affecting the other devotees, then they may have to be isolated in some way, but the chance should be given to continue the process of Krishna consciousness. Many of us are continuing from previous lifetimes. It's not that, you're newly discovering Krishna consciousness in this life necessarily. Many of us, we took to the path, we fell away, and then now we're given the chance again. So we should always be eager to give others a chance to continue your Krishna consciousness. Now today is Rukmini Dwarasi, so I'm going to read something from Krishna book regarding Rukmini. Most of you know, but we hear again and again and again and again and again we hear. And we relish. It's never hackneyed. Some people say, Prabhupada was just preaching. Yes, basic preaching, Krishna consciousness from Bhagavad Gita is nectar for one who's actually a devotee of the Lord. It's only a foolish person who thinks that, Bhagavad Gita is not nectar. Let me read 10th canto of Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Prabhupada said they're so foolish. Some of them say they don't like Arjuna Krishna because that's ghastly warfare. They don't even like Gopi Krishna because that's immoral. They only like Bal Krishna. So, you see, practically, you go to India, everybody has Bal Krishna. They can relate to Bal Krishna with the Ladu in the hand, Ladu Gopal. But they can't relate to Arjun Krishna. And Prabhupada said, they're so foolish. There's no difference between Arjun Krishna, Gopal Krishna, Gopi Krishna. There's no difference. It's the same Krishna, showing different features. And the pure devotees can relish that. And therefore the pure devotees can speak for 3 months on the first verse of Bhagavatam. They're not so foolish that they think only the Gopi Gita is interesting and the rest of Bhagavatam is not. Or the Bhagavad Gita is not interesting. It's spoken by the personality of Godhead. How could it not be interesting? Who could be more interesting than Krishna? It's spoken by the personality of Godhead. How could we not be attracted? If we're not attracted to Bhagavad Gita, that means we're neophytes. We're neophytes. The advanced devotees, they love Bhagavad Gita. They want to preach Bhagavad Gita 24/7, 365. Because that's what the public needs to hear. They don't need to hear Gopi Gita right away. They need to hear Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so we're going to read something about Rukmini. This is chapter 53 from Krishna book. Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. So we know the backstory. Rukmini had heard about Krishna and she developed attraction for him, didn't want to marry anybody else. Her father was in agreement. All the citizens were in agreement. But her elder brother Rukmini was not. He wanted to give her to Shishupal. And to keep peace in the family, Maharaj Bhishmaka, he agreed, okay. So the marriage arrangement was there, but Rukmini didn't want to go through with it. So she sent a letter with one Brahmana to Krishna in Dwarka. And Krishna read and agreed, yes, I will come and rescue you. Now Prabhupada said, how did Krishna get there? From Dwarka to Kundina was more than 800, maybe up to 1,000 miles. How did he get there? By horse-drawn cart, horse-drawn chariot. And Prabhupada said, that just shows you, these are not ordinary horses. They can cover 800 to 1,000 miles in one night. We can barely do that in modern motor car. Going 100 miles an hour, which you're not allowed to on the highway, it would take 8 hours. If you drive 60 miles an hour, which is allowable everywhere, that's a mile a minute. So anyway, Krishna, of course, Krishna could be there in an instant, but for Leela, he came by his horse-drawn chariot. How many horses on Krishna's chariot? Are you sure? Okay, and you know their names? See, these are the facts that we have to glean from reading Krishna book over and over. Daibya, Megapushpa, Sugriv, and Mahalaka. So those are the horses. So this is why we have to read over and over again. Because in Kali Yuga, we're not Shrutidar. We don't read once and remember everything. We have to read over and over and over and over again. And not just spiritual matters, any matter. You see, most of us have been students. You know, you think you know the subject matter. I was not the most, especially in college, high school, I was very good. I got scholarship to go to polytechnics. But you know, in those days, we're talking early 70s, it was more partying than studying. So when the test was coming up, you start trembling because, you know, and this is heavy duty test, not just some historical fact or something. This is science, you know, physics and math and whatnot. So you cram and you think you know it. And then the morning of the test, you start shaking again. Because we are not Shrutidar in this age. We need to hear over and over and over again. So anyway, so the Brahmana, she was waiting for the Brahmana to come back with Krishna's answer and getting worried because the day of the marriage was approaching. Finally, the Brahmana showed up and said, yes, Krishna has agreed. So then she became encouraged. But before marriage, she had to go to, not had to, but it was a custom, to go to the temple of Durga, as Prabhupada said, not to pray for material benefit, but to pray that Krishna would be her husband. So now everybody's watching as Rukmini goes to this temple of Durga. All the princes and visitors who came to Kundina for the marriage had assembled outside the temple to see Rukmini. The princes were especially eager to see her because they all actually thought that they would have Rukmini as their wife. Struck with wonder upon seeing Rukmini, they thought she was especially manufactured by the Creator to bewilder all the great chivalrous princess. By the way, note, it's Rukmini, not Rukmini. we mispronounce her name. It's not Rukmini. She's not a meanie. It's Rukmini. Everybody say, Rukmini. Okay. Her body was well constructed, the middle portion being thin. Her high hips were adorned with a jewel locket. She had pink lips, and the beauty of her face was enhanced by her slightly scattered hair and by different kinds of earrings. The bodily luster and beauty of Rukmini appeared as if painted by an artist, perfectly presenting beauty following the descriptions of great poets. Rukmini's breasts are described as being somewhat high, indicating that she was just a youth, not more than 13 or 14 years old. Her beauty was specifically intended to attract the attention of Krishna. Although the princess gazed upon her beautiful features, she was not at all proud. Her eyes moved restlessly, and when she smiled very simply like an innocent girl, her teeth appeared just like jasmine buds. Expecting Krishna to take her away at any moment, she proceeded slowly toward her home. Her legs moved just like a full-grown swan, and her ankle bells tinkled mildly. The chivalrous princes assembled there were so overwhelmed by Rukmini's beauty that they became almost unconscious and fell from their horses and elephants. Just imagine. Full of lust, they hopelessly desired Rukmini's hand, comparing their own beauty to hers. Srimati Rukmini, however, was not interested in any of them. In her heart, she was simply expecting Krishna to come and carry her away. As she was adjusting the ornaments on a finger of her left hand, she happened to look upon the princess and suddenly saw that Krishna was present amongst them. Although Rukmini had never before seen Krishna, she was always thinking of him. Thus, she had no difficulty recognizing him amongst the princely order. Krishna, unconcerned with the other princes, immediately took the opportunity to place Rukmini on his chariot, marked by a flag bearing an image of Garuda. He then proceeded slowly, without fear, taking Rukmini away exactly as a lion takes a deer from the midst of jackals. Meanwhile, Balaram appeared on the scene with the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha, who had many times experienced defeat by Krishna, roared, "How is this? Krishna is taking Rukmini away from us without opposition. What is the use of our being chivalrous fighters with arrows? My dear princess, just look. We are losing our reputation. He is just like a jackal taking booty from a lion." Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 53rd chapter of Krishna. Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. Rukmini Devi ki jai. Shri Krishna ki jai. So, you can read the next chapter in honor of Rukmini later on, but we see that this is an indication of how we should be attracted to Krishna. Just by hearing, she fixed her mind on him, and she could recognize him when she saw him for the first time, just by fixing her mind on Sri Krishna. So we have that same opportunity. By hearing about Krishna, by coming before the deity of Krishna, and in this case, Radharani, Radha Govinda. But Prabhupada established in New Dwarka, Los Angeles, Rukmini Dwarkadish. And then, of course, nobody dared to ask Prabhupada when he was present, but later after Prabhupada left, some devotees were having doubt. Why Rukmini Dwarkadish? Why Dwarkadish? Why not Radha Krishna? Why not Radha Govinda? Why did Prabhupada do that? They don't understand the mood of a pure devotee. A pure devotee is not constrained by our expectations. Not constrained by our expectations. And actually is sent to set the standard by which we should follow. Some of you who are seeing my Facebook page, I've opened a discussion about why Govinda is wearing a tulsi leaf on his nose. He never did that when Prabhupada was here. These deities were my first deities. It's 1973. Prabhupada established them himself. And that's how they were painted, just the two lines. Govinda only had two lines, no tulsi leaf on his nose. And Prabhupada also supervised the paintings of so many Krishna. And you see these Krishna paintings. Never had any tulsi leaf on the nose. They only had the 2 lines on the forehead. But somehow or other after Prabhupada's departure, because of lack of faith in the Prabhupada's movement, and people became again enamored of the Gaudiya Math. Even though Prabhupada said, I don't want to get into all the details, but Prabhupada said, I have established my International Society for Krishna Consciousness. You follow here, because there are things that Prabhupada did that his godbrothers didn't condone, but Prabhupada didn't care, like having men and women living in the same ashram building, stuff like that. Prabhupada set the standard that he wanted, and we're supposed to be Prabhupada Anugas. Don't go back to Gaudiya Math and say, well, the Gaudiya Math does this way, and they do that. That's okay. They have a right to do what they want. But Prabhupada established his movement. Things should be done the way Prabhupada wanted it. Prabhupada stood in front of Dwarkadish. Day after day, I was there. I was part of that 17 volumes in 2 months marathon. Prabhupada gave class every day. He came before those deities every day. He saw the 2 lines only. No, don't you think Prabhupada is the sharpest person on the planet? He noted every single detail. Don't you think if he wanted that detail, he would have said, do it? He never said it. Every day, just 2 lines on the forehead, nothing on the nose. But somehow or other, after Prabhupada's left, we think we have the right to make these changes in deity worship and other aspects of Prabhupada's movement. We don't have that right. We are supposed to be followers of Prabhupada. Whatever he did, that's what we do. And if somebody in another camp doesn't like it, that's okay. They can follow their Guru Maharaj. We're following our Guru Maharaj, the Samstapakacharya of ISKCON. And again, yes, he did some things different from what other members of the Gaudiya Math are doing. That's okay. Because he also did what his Guru Maharaj wanted done. He established a GBC, Governing Body Commission. His Guru Maharaj wanted that for the Gaudiya Math. They never did it. They still haven't done it. Is there a GBC anywhere in Gaudiya Math? No. There's no GBC. So we're not, again, we don't put anybody down or criticize them. They have a right to execute their Krishna consciousness whichever way they want. But we are supposed to be Prabhupada Anugas, following Prabhupada. Whatever Prabhupada did, whatever he established, that's the way it is. And, this whole business again of feminism, and there's so many discussions going on. I don't like to get into them. But we follow Prabhupada. When Prabhupada is on the planet, he allowed his female disciples to speak publicly, to lead kirtans in public, in India, not just in America. He allowed his female disciples at Pandal programs. And I know I was there. I'm not speculating or guessing. I was there. The Prabhupada said, because one time Prabhupada was asked, should the women be allowed to speak? And Prabhupada said, yes. But if in a program there's a qualified man and a qualified woman, the qualified man should speak. But he wanted his female disciples to learn the philosophy and repeat the philosophy publicly, not just in some private meeting amongst girls. So don't try to change Prabhupada's movement to make it what you want it to be. Just like one time Prabhupada saw a bunch of brahmacharis leaving the temple during the japa period. So Prabhupada said, where are they going? He said, they're going to chant japa away from the temple because they don't like being in the temple with the women. Prabhupada said, oh, they can't chant japa with their mother? He said, if they're so neophyte that they can't see the women as mother, then they should go to the forest and execute their Krishna consciousness there. He also said, oh, they're not going to see any women on the street? So it's okay to see women on the street, but not to see women in the temple. What kind of nonsense, mentality is that? So again, we should not try to make Prabhupada's movement into what we want it to be. Follow the footsteps. Follow the footsteps of the Samstapakacharya. Whatever Prabhupada established, and if you don't know, if you go in the database, some devotees very nicely arranged, those called the Shiksha Amrita, where they have all the different topics, many different topics. You can look up household life, you can look up, cooking, whatever Prabhupada said on many different topics, and educate yourself as to Prabhupada's feelings about these different topics. And then you won't go astray. But if you don't know, if you don't take the time to understand and hear from Prabhupada what he wanted, then anybody can justify whatever they want. And you'll just follow along, which is what happens all the time. Some person goes on the internet or goes on Facebook and makes some statement, and other people jump on the bandwagon. They don't even know who they're dealing with. I'm stressing this point repeatedly because it's wrecking the spiritual life of young devotees. They're following somebody that they don't even know. It could be a Krishna Das, but it actually could be a Radha Dasi who's writing these things, or vice versa. You don't know who you're following, but you see something online and it kind of makes sense to you, and then you jump on the bandwagon, and based on that, you start insulting other devotees. And no intelligence. At least find out who you're following and find out if what they're saying is in line with what Prabhupada said. Because it's not everything that people say that Prabhupada said is actually what Prabhupada said. Even when Prabhupada was here, that was going on. Somebody would go to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we heard that you said such and such. Prabhupada said, I never said that. And another famous case recently, one Mataji, highly educated woman, she's a college professor. So she's giving a talk in the temple. And she said that Prabhupada said, particular instance she was referring to, Prabhupada said in this instance that book distribution is one of the most important activities in ISKCON. But that's not what Prabhupada said on that occasion. On that particular occasion, I knew it, and Rameshwar was there, he knew it, because it was Prabhupada was talking to him. Prabhupada said it's the most important activity in ISKCON. On that particular occasion, that's what he said, it's the most. But some people, they can't take that because they're not into book distribution. So somebody actually put it online. I asked her later on, where did you get it from? She said, oh, I just Googled online and I saw. Try to understand, anybody can put anything they want online. Anybody can take a paragraph from Prabhupada's, from the database and change anything they want and put it online. So try to verify whatever you see online. Don't just Google things and repeat it. Anybody can put anything they want online. This is very important for the young devotees especially to understand. Because we're in the Google age now. Nobody bothers to read anymore. You have to say something, just Google it. And then whatever you find on Google, you just repeat. Google Guru. But as long as you're fortunate enough to live in a community where there are senior proper disciples still present, maybe at least check, and find out if what you found on Google is actually on Google from Google Guru is actually factual. But we're so lazy nowadays. We just take out the phone, Google something, and whatever it says, we repeat. But people can change things. Not can, they do change things. They do change things. Something that Prabhupada said that they don't particularly agree with or like, they make it twisted and they put a twisted version online, and you search and that's what you find. And it makes sense to you, okay, and you just repeat it. So Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's disciples, as long as those three resources are there, make use of them. Don't just go with whatever Google Guru says, because you may be repeating something that's not factual. It's very easy in the electronic age to take something and twist it and turn it and like that. All right, we know breakfast is usually at 9, but the breakfast is at 9:38. Our deity minister kind of ministry representative kind of indicated it's okay. It's not so. I don't agree. I think we should go with whatever breakfast is stated. Today's 9:38 to 10:30. So you can collect your breakfast at 9 and save it till 9:38. What's the problem? Another 38 minutes isn't going to kill you. I think because that same, where is he? He's not here. I'm not talking behind his back. That same deity ministry representative, when it came time to open Kadamba Cafe, he waited till the last second because this was the right titi. So if you can figure out down to the second the right titi for opening Kadamba Cafe, why not for breaking Ekadashi? Why are you saying it's nebulous? That it's okay, it's not, half an hour, it doesn't make a big, no. I take it as gospel. 9:38 to 10:30. So that's when I plan to break. The rest of you are free to do whatever you want. All right, since some of us are not going to breakfast, if you're not going and if you have some question or comment, I'll open the floor for a few minutes if anybody has anything. Yes, Krishna Kripa Prabhu.
When it's part of that Leela, so she gets this letter, after the Brahmana reads it. My dear Brahmana, I'm very glad to hear what you can marry me since I'm also eager to get the hand. My mind is also absorbed in thoughts of the daughter
We read in the Dhammadarashkam, conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. So that's what attracts Krishna. Conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion.
That's when the other thing is, I remember hearing that you're talking about the island, or talking about couples that
Yeah, definitely. But again, the easy thing to see is, are you following your spiritual master? How can you go out and induce other people to take to the process if you don't willingly and lovingly and wholeheartedly follow your spiritual master? And we see that phenomenon. Again, even back when Prabhupada was here, people wanted to go up and go to some Baba in Radhakund or this or that. So if you're not 100% sold out to your spiritual master, then you're immediately suspect. And you can't. How can you inspire anybody? Why would they follow you if you don't follow your leader? All right. Anything else?
You might have read this story, Archie, Giriraj Swami. Giriraj Swami was taken from Boston, one of the World Sankirtan Party members in the 70s. And at the time, he was popular, and he was very eccentric.
Yes.
And the devotees would complain to Prabhupada about it.
Yes.
He would just always
Vestibule. The vestibule. Yeah.
very cerebral, non-communicative. And Prabhupada wrote back, can't you be special case? Well, anyway, so Giriraj Swami, he doesn't come back 20 years later, 1990, and he just looks, and there's this devotee, and he's like, that's crazy Peter. And he goes, Kushakrata. And by that time, he had been translating.
Yeah. And he remained eccentric. It's not that it's not that he gave up. Some of his eccentricities were there to the very end. When he passed away, and this is not a knock on Kushakrata Prabhu, wherever you are, please send your blessings. But let's put it this way, to put it mildly, his abode, his apartment that he was living in was in a state that was shocking. Yeah, it was shocking. Because he was such an eccentric person, so focused on his translation and like that he neglected, let's say, to maintain the place nicely. Again, I don't need to get into details. So he remained eccentric. But yeah, we have to be patient, tolerant, but at the same time, because there are crazy people that are attracted to Krishna consciousness, people who are actually crazy. I remember on Henry Street, we used to chant, all of us, in the temple, but it was so crowded because we're like 100 brahmacharis, so we would drift all over the building. And I remember being in one of the back rooms, looking out on the backyard, and this young man who had joined recently was pacing back and forth, chanting, and then he got so mad. Yamaraj was right next to me. Boom! He pushed his hand through a window, punched out a window, and his hand was bleeding all over. He didn't even notice. He was so crazy. Hare Krishna, he was still chanting with it. So yes, we did attract some people who were not all together. But there's one incident from New Dwarka, when Prabhupada was on the planet, there was one psychiatrist, whatever he was, who became attracted, and he came around and he started to like the devotees and everything. So he asked the devotees to ask Prabhupada for permission to analyze at least a handful of devotees so he can prove to his colleagues that the Hare Krishnas are not crazy, that they're actually very sane people. So Prabhupada said, no. He said, even if clinically you think they're crazy, if they can follow these principles and chant Hare Krishna, they're properly situated. Now, so that was that incident. Now, after Prabhupada left the planet, that person was still coming around. And just to prove that he was crazy, when some devotees thought he was okay and they would reveal their minds to him. And his advice was, the problem with you people is that you're too strict. Once in a while you should go drink a beer and have some fun. And that was his advice to devotees. So Prabhupada is right. Prabhupada did not want devotees to associate with that person. Okay, Granthsara Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Rukmini Dwarasi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Huh?
President group breaking the fast on time.
Yeah, we put it on the calendar. So if we don't follow it, why would anybody who buys our calendar follow it? Sorry, Prabhu, hearing is not so good. Yes, right.
Following the rules and regulations of the public.
Yeah.
Too much fanatic.
Yeah.
Don't too casual.
Yeah, but it's always should be on the Guru's, like for instance, that famous